Hello, dear friends at Kardec Radio. Here we are at our 11 a.m. program on Saturdays. We are here overly joyful because we're going to talk about Kardec's movie, which still is in our hearts, in our minds, and it's on Netflix as well for the next maybe 5 years or so. So we're welcoming all of you to join us because we have a very exciting interview with the director. Yes, the director of the movie, Wagner de Assis. For those who are joining us, let me remind you, if you send us through here, Facebook or email, a question that we may relay to the director of the movie, you may win a Netflix subscription offered to you by Kardec Radio. We are giving away today 3 subscriptions to Netflix. So you can watch the movie if that's the case, if you don't have your subscription at Netflix. And Kardec is the reason why we have Kardec Radio too. Is the reason why, of course, we became spiritists. So join us. We have here beautiful friends, hosts at Kardec Radio, Sunshine, Carol Correia, friends, Gabriel Inácio. Some of you, we already see you here. Tanya Stewart. Thank you, Tanya. You have already watched twice. What an amazing thing. And friends, I know Sunshine has done it, other friends too. Bring your friends together. Your spiritist centers, stream it. And did you know that the movie is dubbed in English and in Spanish? And it's beautiful. It's professional. And it's so beautiful. You want to watch it time and again in all the languages. Portuguese, English, and Spanish. I won't say more because we have a lot to know from the very director himself. And we are super grateful that he has the time to be with us. Thank you, Wagner de Assis, for being with us at Kardec Radio today. How are you?
Yeah, Vanessa, thank you. I'm very welcome. Thank you for being with you again. And an old friend of mine. I'm very happy to be here with you, talking to everybody else all over the world. I mean, we should say that the movie is now currently in more than 180 countries all over the world. So, in despite of the fact that it's dubbed in English and Spanish, you also have subtitles in Russian, in every language where Netflix is. So you can be ready to watch the movie basically everywhere in the world. This is amazing, isn't it?
It's amazing. And for those who are watching us, Wagner, you're also the producer, the director of the No Solar movie, the Indigo Child movie as well, right? And we
some
know,
others.
and others. Conspiracy, right? You said?
Yeah.
Right. And I know you were on the making of No Solar 2.
Yes, we're working on the sequence, on the sequel of Astro City. Now, Solar is also called Astro City in America for the ones that wanted to relate to it.
Yes.
And it is also more than 40 countries all over the world. So to me, it is like this subject, this theme. It is really interesting for every kind of people, everyone. Doesn't matter which religion belongs to, doesn't matter which race or which genre. I mean, it is just an issue that represents and talks to everybody. So the movies can explain more, can tell us more, because this is an important issue for us, isn't it?
Wow. It's amazing. And Wagner, let me ask you, many people are asking this question. How did it happen for you to go from all these other movies to deciding in putting together the movie about Kardec?
It is also a tough decision when you decide to make a movie, because that's basically a 5-year decision of your life,
Wow.
And it's gonna consume you. It's gonna ask 110% of you, because it's not simply I want to tell the story and that's all. It is an industry, it's art and industry at the same time. And by 2013, I was invited to be in a coffee meeting with Marcel Sotomayor, which is the writer of it was writing a new biography
Yeah.
of Kardec. And he told me that. I was like, "Oh, that's cool. You're writing about Kardec again. There are several other biographies that were written, but
Yeah.
and suddenly he said, "You know what? I think you should take this story to the movies. You should make it out of it a movie." And then I was like, "Oh my God, I haven't realized that the meeting was about that." And that is the kind of invitation that you cannot say no. You can't deny these kind of things, because for us that tell stories, when a good story is pulling, is pumping, is sparkling in front of you, you just have to say, I'm gonna tell this story, and then
Yeah.
let's move all the strengths and all the partners, and let's bring everybody else to tell the story with us. So when
Wow.
Marcel invited me like 6 years ago, I was astonished. I was pleased. I was emotionally driven to tell the story of Kardec, which is someone that I've heard of through all my life. I studied the basics of Kardec's chronology and biography, because as
Mm-hmm.
a spirit, we always sit there and we learn who Kardec were in these first basics. You don't really dig into Kardec's life, but
Yeah.
when he was born, when he launched the Book of Spirits, what he was before, he was a professor and so on. But at that day, I realized I had like a lifetime project, and this is when it all started. He invited me, and I said yes, let's do it.
And by the way, Wagner, I read the biography that you're mentioning through Marcel Sotomayor, and his book, I was pleased to read it before you put together the movie. And I was deeply grateful that he did it because he comes from a perspective of a non spiritist. He's not a spiritist.
Yeah,
And right?
that's what he says, right? That's what he claims for himself. But anyway,
Officially, yeah.
the interesting thing of the book is that his approach as a journalist, as he is before
Yes.
being a writer, he's a journalist. His approach was basically purely towards the facts, telling the story of the man through the facts, and finding out what was underneath all the facts. Who was that man in terms of that changed himself from being a professor, someone devoted to science and pragmatism, members of academics, scientific academics, and who was this guy that come to be the guy that defends the spirits? He becomes
Yeah.
the voice of the spirits. So this big change is quite a change,
It's
and
quite
it's the transformation that helps everybody understand what is to get conscious of the whole situation, of whole dimension. So Marcel was approaching the story in a very proper way, and that kinds of stroked me as well. It gave me a lot of strength to go on and do the screenplay and think about all the adaptation for the movies.
And you are also the screenplay writer of this movie, which is fascinating because, as I mentioned to you, when I first watched the movie at the release in Brazil, we had to bring our daughter, who is almost 6, because there was no babysitter or anybody to help at that end. And I was like, oh, praying, oh my gosh, I hope this movie we're able to watch from beginning to end, that she's interested on it. From the first scene at school and the good sense of humor that you portrayed on Kardec, a true educator. It conquered her heart from the first scene to the last. At the end, she was like, is this it? Is this the end of the movie? I want more.
Amazing, 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 Vanessa.
Amazing.
My
Yeah.
kids also like the movie. One is 10 and the other is 6. So they like the movie. They understand the movie. They understand the character's journey. So it is what we say. I mean, good stories are always good stories. People go to the movie. People watch movies because they want to watch good stories. And Kardec's, the Professor Rivaio, transforming himself into Kardec is a great story, and I'm happy that we could tell it on a proper and good way.
and how current the movie is, Wagner, because nowadays we're living in a time of high religious intolerance in the world. We're living, still living clash between science and religion. We haven't come to terms yet, and our educational system is still in need of a big transformational reformation. And to add to it all, when we talk about marriage relationship, you are able to portray a a beautiful true relationship between Kardec and his wife Amélie Baudet, making justice to her role in the making of Spiritism. Were you, are you a medium when you put together the screenplay? It was masterful. I'm not, it was genius,
Thank
especially
you.
because it talks about the current topics, right?
Well, if I'm using my mediumship, I don't know, but it's hard work, and it is like understanding what is the essence of the story, you know. So I could tell you, Vanessa, that I when we were developing the story, I couldn't realize how current the movie would be, and how he would talk to the present day so strongly, you know, in terms of the woman empowerment and relationships, educational reveals that we must have, you know, and all the things that you named, that you listed, and you can find some others, and I couldn't really realize and figure out how these were going to translate to the screen. But when it came to the screen, and people start to say, "Oh my God, this is so actual. This is so present." You know, how could you foresee that? And then I kind of understood that those are universal issues, and they were very intense during the midst of the 19th century.
Hmm.
And we are happy to cut the story, you know, to bring the story out of the story of Kardec, what really matters for these days.
Yeah.
And I think that was a happy choice, which is amazing, and it happens, because when you have to tell the story, you have to make choices, and then sometimes you do wrong choices, and sometimes you do right choices, and you do right choices and happy choices.
Yeah.
And I'm glad that the actors and all the casting could understand it and defend it with so many veracity, with so many true, all that was going on the screen. You know, thank you for that. Thank you for your compliments.
No, and it's amazing. People are here telling us, all the viewers and the listeners are writing here, those who have watched. And we have so many questions here already for you
We have
that
all the time.
yeah,
It is Saturday.
it's Saturday after all. So
I'm just working. So let's keep working.
we're so happy that you're here and you can entertain these questions. We're gonna begin with Luisa Gregorio. She's one of the teens in the Spiritist movement in the United States. She participated in the first International Spiritist movement, and we are glad that she's here relaying this question. She's asking you, Wagner, if you have felt any pressure when you were putting together, making of the movie. How was it?
I had this internal pressure, you know, myself pressuring me, and of course, I knew I was dealing with a subject that was very tricky. It could go wrong, you know. It could go totally out of my hands, and not official. No, there was no pressure officially speaking, you know, from the spiritual federation. No, only support from everybody else. We only had support, but to me, it was like I could understand sort of how the spiritists in Brazil would react when he would see some stuff, you know. So I could learn because I had so much leaving from Astro City, from No Solar. So I had all the good criticism, all the bad reviews, and so all of that was intense inside of me. And then all the decisions that were taken were made mostly because of my inner pressure
Mhm.
of concerning that I have to tell the good story of God. I have to be honest to the character first, and then I have to extract from there the truth. and then it all comes with together. You could put all the things together later, but it's not easy. I must say so.
No.
You don't sleep for quite months. When you're taking these decisions, and when you're shooting, you don't sleep. When you're post producing, you don't sleep.
Wow.
But then you sleep when it comes to the screen. Then you say I did all I could, and then it went properly, and it went nice. Thanks for your question.
Yeah, so Sunshine is also asking something related to that. She's asking what kinds of difficulties you have encountered when shooting the movie.
All kinds of difficulties, Sunshine.
Really?
I mean, making movies is, to me, is the most difficult things of the modern times. Not when speaking with health issues, but when you're speaking to something that puts together art and the industry. You have to do art in a in a in a in a chain of production. In a production size, and it is really hard. I mean, shooting in Paris was unbelievable. It's
Oh,
part
wow.
of my personal history, because
Uh-huh.
we were shooting in Paris in the 21st century, and we had to find a 19th century Paris.
Oh,
That
wow.
doesn't exist there anymore.
No.
So
Yeah.
we have to isolate bridges. Do you figure out how hard it is to
Oh,
isolate a bridge in front of Notre Dame Church? All the
wow.
Parisian, all the people from Paris crossing the set. Nobody really uh, accepts
Just,
that
yeah.
you're shooting, and
Yeah.
all the hunks, and I mean all that strong and amazing city, and you have to think that you are in the 19th century. So
Wow.
there was so much pressure shooting there, and gladly we could do it. But it was, I mean, to me, one of the most uprising tensions of the whole process. Because if we couldn't portray Paris as it
Uh-huh.
was,
Yeah.
the movie wouldn't be reliable. So I mean, that was quite a moment.
No, it was. It was beautiful. But, particularly with Kardec's movie, I know you wrote a book about the behind the scenes. It's not in English yet. Hopefully, one day we can have it in English. But you wrote a book about it because things happen. Would you like to share the things that happen on the behind the scenes of it
um,
all?
Concerning behind the scenes, people are asking me. I mean, there was like any phenomena, any spiritual thing that took place. And sometimes I say there's not when the camera turns on, there is a phenomena, Vanessa. You're materializing, you're making another world happen in front of you, and that's quite magical. To those that have been in a set, production, in a movie production, or when you're portraying like another timepiece story, it is magical to watch Kardec. It is an actor, is an actress, but they are portraying, they are performing like if they were. So that is magical. But of course, things happen,
Mm,
And when we found out the location, that it was going to be the location of Kardec's house, and it was the last chance of finding a good location in Rio de Janeiro. We were searching for several houses, and then it was late at night, and then suddenly my director assistant, she came to me, and suddenly she said, "Look what I found!" And then she handed me like a piece of paper, like this, turn it like this, and she
yeah.
said, "What is this?" And it was stuck on the door of the electrical box, right?
Yes, right.
That clear, right? So the
Mhm.
electrical box of the house, this paper was glued, was attached,
Mm,
and it was written in pen in pencil,
mhm.
and it was a prayer. Someone wrote a prayer, a few lines of a prayer, and just stick it there. I don't know for whom, but it was a
Mm.
prayer that was saying things about, let's put our minds together to have a blessing on the joyful of working together. It was a
Oh,
prayer
wow.
concerning working, and
Oh,
doing good things for the work, and cleaning the ambience, and cleaning the house from bad thoughts, from bad energies. And then I was like stoked. I mean, what is that? Who put it there? There's no signature. It was like, I think it was a woman's handwriting,
Oh,
And
wow.
I said, you know what? This is going to be our prayers, our everyday prayers.
Oh,
So every day, during all the shooting on principal photography,
huh,
someone from the team, from cast and crew,
huh.
they were like asking themselves. I would ask someone, and they were like, "Can I read this? Can I read the prayer?" And then we would stop for a few seconds before the first action would be spoken, and we do a prayer. And that's amazing, isn't it? I mean, like
Oh, wow.
we can pray together, like put 200 people. Those who didn't want to pray, they couldn't, they were allowed not to pray, of course. You
Yeah,
don't need to be a spiritist, you don't need to be anything. You just have to
yeah,
be a good professional to work,
yeah.
to make movies. But
Wow.
then we were like praying, and then suddenly one day the actor Leonardo, who portrayed Kardec,
Yeah.
who performed as Kardec, we asked him to make the prayer, and he forgot that he was the actor doing. So he made the prayer as he was doing as Kardec, and
Oh,
everybody was crying. Like it was like having Kardec praying on your
oh,
dining room.
oh, wow.
I mean,
Yeah,
this is amazing things
it's
that,
amazing.
and I was putting chronicles of that, and I was writing down because I didn't want it to forget, and I
Uh-huh.
didn't plan to do a book, a behind the scene book. But then Marcel, the writer, he was reading them and said, "You know what? Let's make it a behind the scenes book because it's amazing." I also told the story. I mean, just a second one. I don't want
Uh-huh.
to spend too much,
No,
but I mean, we were
we want
shooting.
to hear them all of them.
We were shooting. It was a day for shooting the books, the Alto de Barcelona. When the books were burned,
Yeah.
a lot of
Oh,
fire, and we had like all those mock-up books. Of course, we were going to put fire on books,
uh-huh.
and suddenly we had 3 stages of fire. Put some fire, cut, rearrange all the books, change the camera position, change the actors, some more fire, and then the final fire would be like the big fire. So there was
Uh-huh.
like this propane gas in hidden in between the books to make the flames go
Oh,
high. And it's okay, all the books were there, action, the books start burning, and a few seconds later, when the flames were like 2 meters high, suddenly I looked from my video assistant, and there was one book that was not taking fire. The
oh.
book simply couldn't get fire. He avoided being on fire. And I was shouting to the DP and said, Donato Estrela, the DP, and said, "Do you see the book? He's not on fire." And the book was not on fire, Vanessa. And it
Oh
was
my
like a
God.
minute long in between like these huge flames, and that shot is in the film. That
Oh,
shot is the one that is in the book, in the film, in the cut,
uh,
because it was so magical that the book was not. He didn't allow himself to get on fire, and for like a minute long in the mid of the big fire, and then we were like, "Oh my gosh, what happened?" I think I had the photo here.
oh,
I can,
wow.
and it was
That's
like amazing.
amazing.
I mean, to me, it's one of the best images of the movie. See
Yes.
here, you see
Okay.
here,
Yes. Uh-huh.
see the book there.
Oh,
The book
oh.
is not on
It was
fire.
a real thing.
Yes, you
Oh,
see,
wow.
the book was
That's
not on
amazing.
fire.
Not on fire. This is,
And that's the prayer. That's the
oh,
paper,
the
the real
prayer.
paper.
Oh, wow.
Wow. Which I mean, and the last day we turn the paper back again, and we stick back on the door again of the box machine, of the lightning machine.
Oh,
Leave the paper there for someone else to come and find it. Of course, we took copies, but
uh-huh.
then we just let the prayer there.
Wow. So you see the difference. A question that I have in my mind since you're talking about this behind the scene events is when you're shooting a spiritist movie and a non-spiritist movie, if I may say this way. And I'm not saying it's a spiritist movie because Kardec doesn't, it's not in a box. It's
Thank
just,
you.
I don't think Kardec is about, it's the history of humanity.
This is
So,
universal storytelling, right? This is
exactly. But since it talks about spirituality, it has this, it talks about the interaction into realms. Do you feel people who are shooting it, even though they're not spiritists, they're not spiritual, it makes everything different? Is there a difference between shooting a story that talks about spirituality and spirits and one that does not?
uh, that's a hard one. I say that in a sense, there's no difference because it's all professional wise, right? So in a sense, everybody has to do its job, and it's a huge, amount of working to do, and we are a team. We have to go through that together. On the other hand, when you fall in love for the story, when you're personal attached to the story that you're working on, like the camera grip guys, they do comedies, they do romantic movies, but when they, for instance, when they're making a movie that tells a story that his grandmother used to tell him, there's a connection somehow. And Kardec was a proof, and associated as well. It was a proof that people had connections with Kardec and they didn't know it. They didn't tell it. They were like, those connections were hidden inside of them. So they would say, "Oh, my aunt, my uncle always told me about these things. I never know him, but now I remember him. Why am I remembering my uncle that has passed away 10 years ago?" And I said, "I know why, but I would say I don't know." And this is what brings people more together. And also it depends on how we guide the whole situation, right? Because sometimes people that don't have religion themselves, which is cool, they are a wonderful professional, they would come to work with me and say, "Oh my God, who is this guy? He's gonna pray, he's gonna convince me of some stuff." And then once you're dealing with it as much professional as you can do, and once you're working hard and you're showing your passion and you're just wanting from the guys that do your job the best you can, be part of the team, it's amazing because you get and then there's another connection. You get respect of that you're making that for a good movie, and it doesn't matter if he likes the story or not. It matters if he's doing as much as best as he can. And the way I behave, it has to do as well. So I don't like that. To me, it's like doing a movie is as important as the movie itself on the screen. So if someone made a movie with me out of the 5 or 6 movies that I've done in my life, and if this person has bad memories out of it, it's a failure of mine, If the whole process of doing the movie is not as good as the movie should be on the screen, to me it doesn't work, because there are different situations. Making the movie has to be a good story,
Yeah.
Making the movie has to be a good moment for everybody.
Yeah.
It's part of the theme. It's part of, if it's a horror movie or it's a war movie, it can't be a place that you are gonna remember with your guts. You're gonna remember with your anger, with your sorrow out of it. You know what I mean? Am I clear?
Yeah.
I think I'm trying.
It's an emotional connection, right? You're talking about
it has to be a good moment. We're gonna spend like 7-8 weeks together, 12 hours a day, 6 days per week. It has to be okay. It has to be a wonderful thing to do. So you just make movie because you love it. I don't know of anybody who makes movies because it has to. Then you can work in anything else. Making movie requires much love out of it.
But and we can see it in Kardec's movie too. But since the movie,
there is a theory that says that when there is love in the production, it prints in the screen.
And we feel it. Everyone who has been watching it reports to us. We feel it ourselves. But this movie also portrays the battle between reasoning and faith, which shouldn't exist, but yet it exists to date, though in a different form in some parts of the world. And it's curious, since you talk about the burning and this resistance to accept some facts that are undeniable. When you are shooting it, and since we're talking about spiritism, and we know there are good spirits that are helping things come to life, and of course there are the other ones that don't want it to happen. Would you say you could identify the forces that were playing on each side?
Just in the beginning, before diving in the whole process, And the first day, I wrote a chronic. I wrote a story about it as well. On the first day of of shooting in Paris, I was really nervous. I was almost having a breakdown because I said, it's so much people here, so much scenes to make,
Oh.
and how am I gonna make it through? I have planned it, but everything can go wrong. I mean, they can close the city, they can do everything, and I mean, the whole movie is in judge, is in play, is at stake right now. And then I went very close to the Seine River, right below, right in front of Notre Dame before the fire.
Oh, wow.
And I said, I'm gonna do myself some prayers here. I'm gonna my mentalization that it all has to go because I have to be calm down. I have to calm myself down.
Yeah.
And then suddenly I was listening to this amazing song with huge voices, a choir singing.
Uh-huh.
And I thought myself, oh my God, you're singing out loud inside of the church because this is too loud for me. And then I look around and nobody's listening. I said, oh my gosh, I'm listening to a music, to a choir. And that was an hymn, an hymn, hino, how to say that in English?
Yeah, an hymn.
An hymn.
Yeah.
And I could realize, I could figure out, and I was like paying attention. It was a French. It was in France, in French. I speak French, not as much, not as good as I speak English, but anyway, I couldn't understand. And they were singing, it was a hymn to pour l'amour et pour la vérité, to love and truthness.
Oh.
And my assistant direction came to me, and I was like, okay, go back to the work. And she saw that I was in emotion, I was in tears, and said, are you okay? And I said, yes, I'm okay. I was just like, calm down here. And then the final thing that I heard is, the guy that you are going to tell the story now, what is the life of this guy that are going to tell the story now, if not but a single hymn to love and the truth? You know what I mean? Am I clear? I mean, what is it? What was his life if not a hymn, a song, a choir singing to love and truthness? And that was like very emotional.
Wow,
then I could think we were like surrounded by a caravan of people, a group of people that were working together with us.
Uh-huh.
But then when it comes to the shooting itself, you don't remember, just like shot by shot, acting, wardrobes, lighting, all those lighting design that we had. It took us like a lot of effort and so on. But I mean, in the end, a day later, a day after the shooting was done, a medium comes to me from a spiritual house here in Brazil, in Rio de Janeiro, and then he delivers to me a message that was sent to me and to the crew, cast and crew.
Oh.
And it's in the book as well. And the message was telling about this group of spirits, the caravan. How do I say caravana? It's like
the caravan,
a caravan of love, a caravan working for love and truth. So this person who wrote the message would never know about the song that I wrote, the hymn that I heard. And the message was saying that with you guys, there was a caravan working for love and truth.
Oh.
And that was amazing, I mean, it was kind of confirming myself. And it is, I always think that it's not because we are privileged ones. No, it's because we're working on a nice and proper way, like you guys do at Kardec Radio, all the spiritualist movement in America, in France, in Switzerland, in Brazil, wherever in the world, where there are two or three in my name, there I'll be there, right? That's what Jesus said.
Yeah.
And this is why I don't like to make out of it a headline, we were with spirits around us. Oh, tell me some good news. Of course. And and of course, and I understood as well that this caravan was not there to make the movie. And that's important to understand. They were there, of course, to protect us because we were asking for protection. We were in symphony. But they were there also to help all the spirits around us, because we went through a museum that was closed here in Rio, and since the 19th century, So imagine the amount of spirits that were there. We shot at the 19th century house. That close to the house there was how do you say senzala?
Oh, ouch! I don't know. Maybe
The house
Carol
of
Correa and
slavery,
others can help us here. I'm not so sure.
a house of slavery. There was,
Yeah.
of course, it was not activated, but it was there. So it
Oh.
is still here in Rio. The house where the slaves would sleep, the
Mm,
house where they would. And then I didn't want to go to this location. I said, "Oh my God, it's gonna be a mess." And then suddenly, I thought this is where the place where we have to be.
yeah.
Let's go to the main house and shoot the movie. And then all these spirits were helping, probably spirits that were there for years and years. So it's like two teams working together, one
Yes.
doing one specific job and the other one doing the main job, job for love and
Beautiful. Paloma is saying, thank you, Paloma. Slave quarter. Slave quarter.
slave quarter. Thank you,
Yeah,
Paloma. Yes.
exactly. So, but I'm gonna put there are so many people asking questions, and I'm gonna put two of them together since we're talking about the making of the movie. Carol Correa and Gabriel Inácio asked a question about the screenplay itself. So first and foremost, Gabriel Inácio is asking because he knows how to do video editing, and he says, it's pretty hard to make a decision on what to show in an hour and a half, a life in an hour and a half. So he wants to know
An hour,
more about how
an
it
hour 50.
was.
An hour 50. I had to cut like seconds from the movie to put it in an hour 50.
Oh wow!
Because Gabriel, we were like, the first cut was 2 hours and 10, and I took 15 minutes out of it crying. When we had to cut, we cry,
I,
and then it was like an hour and 53, and then it came like a demand from the exhibitors. They were loving the movie, but they said, we can't go over an hour and 50 because then we could put 5 sessions a day, and in it, and that's industry. And then how do you cut 3 minutes out of a movie that is not uncuttable somehow?
oh
And I
no!
was like cutting seconds. And and I'm going to tell you a story, a secret. If you
Uh,
see the credits, they are small and they go a little bit faster. We are hurrying with the credits, with the final credit, to fit in an hour 50. And it's
oh wow!
that's
Good job.
painful. Then it's
At
hard.
least, yeah. But can you tell a little bit about the scenes that you wish could have stayed and you had to cut?
We had a few scenes that took place during the saloon. Him
Uh-huh.
talking to the editor,
Uh-huh.
all his doubts, all his fears, and the
Mm,
editor is making fun of, not really making fun out of it, but laughing as a good French would do, and I mean
yeah.
the French humor.
Uh-huh.
And there were like two scenes there. There was one scene with the students at school, that one I really like, because when he decided to quit, he leaves the room of the director of the school, where the priest is there staying. And after that, he was gonna be walking from the patio. You say patio from the school, patio of the school,
Yeah, the patio.
the patio of the
Or
school,
yeah.
and all the kids were coming after him and would embrace him. So he would
Oh
be embraced by like
no.
10 or 15 kids, crying that he shouldn't be leaving. That
Ah,
was too emotional, but we had to hurry with the movie, and it was not really about the ending of a professor career. It was the ending of a moment, and we understood that we had set it up, and I cut.
it's
I
about the rise of the educator of humanity, right?
Yes,
All
yes.
right. Oh wow.
Yes, yes. There was another moment when his house little table turns again, and then it was the cat.
Uh,
That is like a screenplay trick. I mean, which is truth, which is the truth, which is not the truth. And I mean, there were like 5 or 6 scenes that we had to cut. I mean, it is what it is. When you see a
uh,
movie, you really don't know how painful it was to cut all the things, but it is part of the industry. We have to understand that.
so since you're talking about scenes that were not present in the movie, when it comes to a DVD years from now, do you plan on putting these extra scenes over there so people can
Maybe,
watch it?
why not?
Maybe.
Maybe, yes,
Yeah.
maybe. That's not my call, actually. But I could convince the producers. As I'm
Yeah.
not a producer, I mean, Astro City had like several scenes that I had to cut as well, Vanessa.
Oh, wow.
Scenes that
That's
I
hard.
loved, you know.
Yeah.
But I mean, you have to cut. It is. It is. I mean, Gabriel and us, he's right. We cry. It's not easy at all, but it's part of the
Yeah.
job.
But we have here Raza asking about, how people can watch the movie if they don't have Netflix or TV.
If they don't have Netflix out of Brazil, they can't watch the movie. Sorry, don't do it piracy because you're spoiling the industry.
Yeah.
I mean,
But I'm just telling Raza, you just won the subscription on Netflix here at Kardec Radio because you asked that question. So there you go. Problem solved. That's
amazing.
good for you.
There you go. You're gonna watch the movie. Where are
And
you from, Raza? Where are you from?
Raza, where are you located? Can you tell us, please? And while we wait, Wagner, let me ask you a question here that somebody else has asked about. I just missed it. About the books, the end scene. Since you're talking about how to end the movie, you talked about the burning of the books. And Carol Correa is asking, what have inspired you to end the book, the movie, the way you did, and shortly after the burning of the books? She's asking.
Because, good question.
It's almost poetic, right? The way we
It is.
see
I
it.
mean, we wouldn't go through all his life. We wouldn't. We want to show the transformation and the results of the transformation. So when you see that the book is not, that is, it has a poetic license, a dramatic license as well. When you see that the book is not able to save people's life, but it is the truth that it has in it, it has to work on you, and it makes transformation on you. So people can jump from bridges, even though they read the book, right? It happens. It is actual. It is a problem of our society. But when you see that sometimes it can save people. So all this dynamic situation, we understood that by the moment the flames were firing, were shining to the sky, and by the moment he realized that the universe is much more than what we see, that's why he sees those poetic license, those images over the cathedral, over Notre Dame. If we keep telling the story, we would start another round, then it's time to the divulgation, then it's time to make the trips, then it's time for other books, and then we wouldn't have the time. So we have to make the right choices, and I realized that the right things was, the story, it's going to be everywhere in the world. People are burning the books, but they don't burn the ideas. That's the whole thing. That's all he needs to know. And to me, one of the lines that I like the most is that in the end, he says to his wife, remember that when they told me it was going to be tough? Yes, they told us it was tough. It is tough, but it's worth it. And I think this is so able to connect nowadays. It is worthy of living and doing all the process of transformation. In the end, it's going to pay off.
Yeah, wow. And it's almost poetic when you see the flames and the little sparks and how it's spreading out in the world. It's so poetic at the end of it.
There was the inspiration of the nebula called the God's Eyes. It is inspired in that nebula. So there's something looking for you. And to me, Carolina is asking, what message do you hope the audience to take to heart? It is worthy of, Carolina. I think that is the final message. I don't want to give so much message. Let us people take their own message. But when Kardec says, changing my name, losing my life behind, letting my life behind, losing my friends, losing my dignity, and losing my credibility as a scientist, and defend all this new situation that I learned that is true, it is worthy of, and it's amazing to see to see it as an example. We can look back and say, you know what? If I took the right choices, if I did the right things, if I worked against my imperfections, and the whole inside transformation, it has to be worthy of. That's something that I truly believe to myself. That's something that I learned from Kardec. And it is in the movie mostly because that is what he tells us.
Yeah, it's amazing. But at Kardec Radio, Wagner, we're not like a common radio station. We're a spiritist station reporting the good news. We don't like to be controversial. but there are things that are worthwhile talking about. We have a viewer here, Monica Milena, who is coming across, bringing to us perspective of Kardec, his profile. You show the human Kardec. Some people think that he's presented in the movie, as she says, as a little fearful. And what would you say to the viewers and the listeners at Kardec Radio when they see that way? Why did you
Monica is her
show
name, right? It's Monica.
Monica? Yeah.
Monica, he was a human being. And as a human being, even Jesus had its own moments, right? Because he wanted to tell us being fearful, being fragile sometimes makes us stronger. Francis of Assis had its moments. And Saint Augustine had a lot of moments. Lucas, the apostle, had a lot of moments. So it would be unfair to look at Kardec, to look at the Professor Rivaio, like he would be perfect, like he would be someone who would never had nightmares, or someone that would never be sick. It is not the truth. I mean, the truth is that he lived his own life. He lived a very livable and very regular life. But the way he behaved through all the difficulties, for all the challenges, that makes him special. So it would be unfair to him and not humanizing him, not making him a human being. You know, we are full of flaws and imperfections, but what makes us special is that when we go through it. So he made it through, and to me, is much more than the portrait of the paint. You know, the cover of the books. Those people looking at Kardec like that is looking at Kardec like a god, like someone who could never cry, who could never be helped by the woman. That's a lot of a machista situation, you know.
Yes. Yeah, I agree with you.
I
Yeah.
mean, the story, the history, the people who wrote the story would never pay the Vanessa told it, the proper homage or the proper attention to the importance of the woman he had on his side, working with him, doing the job with him. And but when you open the door of a couple that did not really have children, so they were intelligent, they were bright, they were smart, they were people recognized by their society. There was a lot of at stake, a lot that should be judged before giving away the names, giving away their social position. That is not easy.
That's
That
not
is
easy.
not easy. I mean, and of course,
You're
people
breaking a lot of protocols there, right?
yes, people who don't like to see him as fragile. I think those people want him to be a god, and Kardec wouldn't be in that position. Even he would really avoid that situation. You know, he would say there is no Cardacism, for instance. I didn't create a religion,
Yeah.
and that is a proof of being humble. You know, being human, understanding the whole thing. To me, not being so much offensive, but people who think that Kardec couldn't be the man he was, who didn't understand nothing. I mean, wouldn't understand nothing at all about the spiritism and his life, you know?
Mm-hmm. And you know, it's interesting when you talk about Amélie Boudet in the Spiritist movement. As a Spiritist myself, I see a lot of chauvinism, like it's always centered in the men and the male, and the majority of the Spiritists in the world are women, have always been, and it's a beautiful partnership between women and men. And I think Kardec, from the get-go, he sets a new pattern for us. And I think when you portray it in the big screen, we were like, I can't believe it. Finally, somebody is making justice to what it should be
And
and
that
what
was
it
not,
was.
and that was not made on purpose, Vanessa. That is
No,
because when you dig in the story, who was sitting beside him when he received his message of his mission? It was her. Who was sitting beside him when the table started to round, to reps? It was her. And who was answering the letters? I mean, all the way through when he passes away, who keeps there for like 15 years defending the doctrine, defending the spiritual doctrine? It is her. So of course she was this, another pillar, another iron stake, another something that you can relate to and say, you know what, she was as important as him. Of course they helped each other, and
Yeah.
it is not intentionally to put her importance because of actual days. It is because this is what it was indeed.
And it's not simple. I remember, for example, Raul Teixeira saying to us, like, he was engaged and he had to break the engagement because he was challenged. Like, it's either me or spiritism. So it's not simple. And when you make justice to what it really was, to the both of them, it brings to all of us the call to a new type of relationship on earth, one that
Sure.
is true equanimity. It's like you really, like, they are side by side. And as Rihanna Williams, she's here with us. She's from South Africa, and she's saying it shows the true challenges that they went through in assistance. It's not fairy tale, but a true story of life work. And Angela Stewart, who is in Florida, she's saying that her husband watched it and he thought it was short. Though it was almost 2 hours, he thought it was short. He wanted more. And
Me
she's saying,
too.
yeah. So Gabriel Ignacio is asking, is there a Kardec 2 now? We want the sequel?
I would love to, but I mean, we have no plans yet. I mean, there are so many things to be done. Let this Kardec one make its own history.
Yeah, we still have to work on it.
But
We
never say
still
never, Gabriel. Never say never.
never say never. But there is we're in September. September is the month of suicide awareness,
Yes.
and since the movie, and this is one of the, it's so educational in so many ways, so inspiring. It talks about people who are thinking about, quitting life, and how the message comes, and how Kardec was conscientious in, in his role, sharing things that will benefit people. So we have here Hercules, who is asking, who is talking about the moment when Kardec spoke to the man on the bridge, right? And he's saying, remained Hilario Silva in the Spirit book. Beautiful page. I don't know exactly what he's saying here about the page of the book, Hilario Silva, but he's saying about the scene when Kardec spoke to the man on the bridge, and how you emphasized it when he crosses over, comes back to speak through a medium. That decision to bring that highlight from Kardec's life, was it since the beginning of the screenplay, or did you,
Yeah.
how was it?
I mean, that is something that came out of the understanding of the whole Kardec's conflicts. One
Mm,
of the main conflicts he had, it was like he was fighting against materialism. He was fighting against miserability. A
mm,
society that wouldn't believe in anything. France and Europe, they were coming out of a lot of pain and a lot of suffering from the first half of the century. And he really touched him a lot when he would receive later on. We learned that he would be really emotional touched when he would receive books and message people saying, I was going to kill myself and I read your book and I didn't kill myself.
yeah,
He got thousands of those, tons of those lessons,
yeah,
of those messages.
uh-huh,
And we understood that it was nice to speak about it in a very soft, and subtle way, but we had to talk about it in a way. And then we create this character that doesn't speak, someone that brings himself a general outfit. You don't know if he was from the army or if he's just someone out of the streets that put a hat on himself. But his eyes, his looks, which is amazing, because Christian Bautu, the actor, is an
uh-huh,
amazing actor. He could speak through the eyes. He's a French
yeah.
actor
Oh,
and
wow.
an amazing actor. I just when I put my eyes on his eyes and I said, "This is the eyes this is the looks that I need.
Oh,
Those are
wow.
the looks that I need." And he could understand the suffering through the eyes, and I think this is it. I mean, the book itself doesn't save anyone, but the content of the book, when learned and when understood and when lived and when performing inside of people can make people save their lives. And then we had to show both sides, because this is something that I would never cut from the movie. That's the guy in the end, after the credits, the guy standing by the bridge in the end. We learned that, people jump, people don't jump. So you can relate to it as well.
It's amazing, Wagner, because throughout is so well put together from beginning to end. And it shows the difficulties, the beauty of it all, the partnership. It shows the real human Kardec. And some people like Tony Stewart are asking if you included the things in the screenplay that are not told in the Spiritist books. You did research beyond it, right? I mean,
I did a lot of research through. I mean, we can see a lot of Kardec at the review, at the magazines, the spiritual magazine. This is when you can really hear his voice. You can really hear and understand how how fighting he was for the doctrine, how strength he was for the principles of the doctrine. And I would say that the review, the magazine, was one of our main resources, and main places of researching, because there is a lot of his voice there. And we didn't really use too much things out of the spirit of the Book of Spirits. I mean, there's only one answer that is answered, one question that is answered, which is God, which is the first one. And then the other ones are just spoken out loud, and there are no answers. I would say that in the first or second treatment of the screenplay, I would not even answer what is God, But then I realized that, oh no, you know what? That one we have to answer. And then, because he explains how he was going to proceed to his investigations, the universal method of knowledge, speaking to different mediums and comparing the answers and so on. But to me, it's like, if people want to read the Book of Spirits after watching the movie, great, amazing. But it is not about the Book of Spirits.
No.
It's about the man who made that stud and gave a codex, a codification of the things and put it in a book. And if you want to learn out of it, go for it. That's the movie.
Yeah, and it's amazing. It's just amazing. As Hercules is saying, Kardec was so real and human, and we are very grateful to you for bringing Kardec so close to us, because we can feel him. It's even emotional for us too. When we recall the way you portrayed Amélie Baudet and the medium, so cute, the mediums, and showing how, in some ways, the innocence of the preteens and the teens on the behind the scenes, right? Facing the struggles at the time while people were entertaining themselves with spirit phenomena. Somebody was serious about it, committed about it, and saw in a very visionary way, in ways that are still at vanguard for us, because we're still minority in the world. So it's a movie about humanity. It's about all of us and the future of humanity. I can see this movie in the future, Wagner, being praised by the generations to come.
Thank you. Hopefully. Thank you.
So, we wish we could stay with you here for hours, and we hope we have more of you in the future at Kardec Radio, Wagner. But we're truly grateful for Gabriel Inácio saying thanks a million, and it's all of our feelings here at Kardec Radio, all of our audience around the world. Deep gratitude.
I have to be thankful to the audience all over the world, Vanessa. And I have a request to make.
Yes.
For these people all over the world, after watching the movie, and if you like the movie, bring someone that doesn't know Kardec in front of the TV. Introduce the story of the movie to this person and see how it comes through. You see what comes out of it. Don't demand you have to like this man. You have to learn how to demand. Just put him put the person in front of the TV and let the story be the story. And this is something that it is my request. Then tell us. We hear from the social media like Facebook, internet, Instagram, and Twitter. Now I I have the three of them now. So
Yeah.
and spread the news, because this is what happened to Astro City, to Nosso Lar. I
Yeah.
would say you don't have to be a spiritist to watch the movie, and just place someone in front of the TV or in front of a screen and see how it connects to people. Sometimes it won't connect, and that's okay. Sometimes it's gonna pull buttons that are amazing to be pulled. There are open doors inside of people's souls, and it's cool, man.
That's an idea, do gatherings, screen the movie, have a dinner together with people afterwards to talk about it. It doesn't hurt. Why
It
not? Right?
it is that's the truth. That's the one of the things that made us feel so happy with the streaming situation, because it's there. Just click it, just I mean, just put it there and see how it goes. Tell
Share.
me
Yeah, and tell Wagner de Assis later. Share with all of us. So, Wagner, we want to give you a big virtual hug of
later. Thank you.
gratitude for your hard work and the work of the beautiful crew in this movie, for Marcel Sotomayor inspiring you and inviting you to this big step. And we're yet to hear the beauty that comes from watching this movie in the world.
Amazing.
Thank you,
Thank
Wagner.
you, Vanessa. Congratulations on all your work you've been doing in America. It is an amazing place to be seeding, to be spreading the seeds of love and truth. And I'm very grateful that we can talk about it nowadays. I want to tell this. I'm going to tell the story in the movies of the
Uh-huh.
Fox sisters. There's another
Oh,
movie that I'm going to be doing. I have the
oh,
rights of the book. I have signed it with Fox Disney, and I'm on the final financing stages. Always looking for money. That takes most of the
oh,
time,
yeah.
but sometimes at a certain point it's gonna come,
Yeah.
and I'll be glad to be talking to you, because America
Yeah.
was meant to be a place like Brazil, and it is already meant to be a place like Brazil, spreading and sharing
Yeah.
spirituality in all senses. And
Yeah.
I'm very hopeful with that, and we're going to be working together. We're the same side, we're in the
Yeah.
same team. There's no other side. That's the thing.
No. No.
No
Yes.
division. We're only one. We're all one. And
I
that's amazing. Thank you and congratulations.
thank
And everybody
you.
that's listening.
Count on us, Wagner. Always. Kardec Radio here to support you, okay?
Thank you.
Thank you. So, dear friends, what a joy. Joy to the world. The Lord is come. Yes, these are the good news by the Promised Consoler coming to all of us. You see, we are spreading this news. Share it, friends, because now you have the power in your hands with your social media. Go share with the world, because Kardec now is closer to us than ever before. Kardec and the whole team in two worlds. So thank you, Wagner, again. And thank you, friends, for your joy. And let us do our part, and share. It's easy. All we need to do is share. Share what is good, and let's keep seeking the good, because the good comes from God. Thank you, friends. And until next time, here at Kardec Radio.